In the rolling hills of southern Missouri, where the Ozark Mountains whispered secrets to the wind, lay a hidden gem known as Whispering Waters Lake. It wasn't marked on most maps, and tourists rarely stumbled upon it, but to the locals of Willow Creek, it was more than a body of water. It was a living testament to resilience and heritage. The lake earned its nickname from the gentle murmurs of its springs, bubbling up from ancient underground aquifers. But its official name on old deeds was Black Man's Lake, a nod to the man who had claimed it generations ago, Josiah Black, a freed slave who had escaped the chains of bondage in the 1850s and staked his future on this untamed land. Josiah had built a simple earthen dam with his bare hands and the help of fellow freedmen, channeling the springs into a serene reservoir that nourished the surrounding fields. Over the decades, the lake became a sanctuary not just for fish and fowl, but for Black families who found refuge there during times of turmoil. It was a place where stories were passed down like heirlooms, where children learned to fish with handmade poles and elders spoke of ancestors who had outwitted oppression. By the turn of the 21st century, the stewardship of the lake had fallen to Elijah Thompson, Josiah's great-great-grandson, a 68-year-old widower with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that held the depth of the waters. He protected. Elijah was a man of quiet strength, his frame lean from years of manual labor, his hands etched with the scars of maintaining the dam's aging structure. He had served in Vietnam as a young man, returning home not to parades, but to the subtle prejudices of a changing America. Instead of bitterness, he channeled his energy into conservation, becoming a self-taught hydrologist and ecologist. For decades, he had monitored the lake's rhythms, the way the water levels rose with spring rains, the migration patterns of the bass and crappie, the delicate balance of the wetlands that fringed its shores. The dam, now reinforced with concrete and steel gates he had installed himself in the 1980s, was his life's work, a barrier that held back not just water, but the encroachment of a world that valued profit over preservation. Elijah lived in a modest cabin overlooking the lake, its porch creaking under the weight of memories. His wife, Miriam, had passed a decade earlier from cancer, leaving him with their daughter, Lena, who now lived in St. Louis as a teacher. Lena visited often, urging her father to sell portions of the land for retirement funds, but Elijah always shook his head. "This ain't just dirt and water, child," he'd say, his voice a deep rumble like distant thunder. "It's blood." Josiah didn't fight for freedom just to have it auctioned off. He taught local kids, mostly from underserved communities, about ecology, hosting free workshops on weekends. They'd paddle canoes across the lake, learning how the wetlands filtered pollutants, how the herons nested in the reeds, and why balance was the key to survival. Nature don't rush, he'd tell them. It waits, watches, and when pushed, it pushes back. The trouble began in the spring of 2023, when whispers of development reached Willow Creek, the homeowners association HOA of a nearby upscale community, led by ambitious real estate mogul Victoria Langford, had set their sights on Black Man's Lake. Victoria was a force of nature herself, 52 years old, with platinum blonde hair, designer suits, and a reputation for turning rural backwaters into luxury retreats. Born into wealth in Kansas City, she had built her empire on flipping properties, promising sustainable developments that often skirted environmental regulations. Her latest venture? Transforming the lake's eastern shore into a premier vacation spot. 139 high-end cabins, complete with private docks, infinity pools, and eco-friendly facades that masked the heavy footprint on the land. Victoria arrived in Willow Creek like a whirlwind, her convoy of luxury SUVs kicking up dust on the gravel roads. She rented the town hall for a presentation, projecting glossy slides of rendered cabins perched on stilts above the water. Imagine, she enthused, her voice amplified by a wireless mic. A haven for stressed urbanites, yoga retreats by dawn, wine tastings at dusk. This project will inject millions into your economy, jobs, tourism, schools upgraded. Willow Creek will be on the map. The crowd, a mix of farmers, shop owners, and retirees, murmured approval. Times were tough, the local Mill had closed, and young people were fleeing to cities. Victoria's promises sparkled like fool's gold, but Elijah sat in the back row, his arms folded across his chest, his gaze fixed on the screen. He knew the shore she targeted marshy, unstable, prone to subsidence after heavy rains. It was part of the lake's natural buffer, absorbing floods and nurturing biodiversity. When the Q&A began, he stood, his presence commanding silence. "Ms. Langford," he said evenly, "that land ain't for building, it's wetland. Sink your pilings there, and it'll swallow 'em whole. The dam holds the water steady, but push the balance, and you'll lose more than cabins." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate your local knowledge. Our engineers have conducted thorough surveys. We're using elevated foundations, permeable materials state-of-the-art. This is progress with respect for nature." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some nodded at her confidence, others glanced at Elijah, knowing his warnings carried weight. He had predicted floods before, saved livestock by adjusting the dam gates in time. But Victoria pressed on, handing out brochures that touted harmony with the environment. After the meeting, she approached Elijah privately in the parking lot, her heels sinking slightly into the soft earth, a omen she ignored. "You're influential here," she said, extending a manicured hand. "Partner with us. We could name a trail after you, or donate to your workshops." Elijah shook her hand firmly but replied, "Ain't about names or money, it's about legacy. Josiah Black built this dam to protect, not profit. You build there, you're inviting ruin." Undeterred, Victoria moved forward. Permits were fast-tracked through connections in the state capital. Environmental impact assessments glossed over with paid consultant stamps. By summer, surveyors dotted the shore, marking plots where ancient oaks would be felled. Elijah watched. From his cabin, a knot forming in his stomach, he wrote letters to the county board, citing soil instability and potential erosion. "The lake's edges are like a sponge," he explained in one. "Load 'em with weight, and they'll give way." Responses were polite, but dismissive, all concerns addressed in the approved plans. As bulldozers rumbled in, Elijah's resolve hardened. He walked the shore daily, documenting changes the way the water mudded from runoff, the displacement of wildlife. Neighbors stopped by his cabin, some supportive, others tempted by job offers from Victoria's crew. "Elijah, it's good money," said Marcus Hale, a lifelong friend and mechanic. "My boy's out of work. Can't blame folks for taking it." Elijah nodded, understanding the pull of necessity. "I get it, Marcus, but short gains lead to long pains. Remember, the '98 flood, dam held cause we respected the land. This is greed dressed as opportunity." Victoria's team worked relentlessly, clearing land and pouring foundations. The first cabins rose like skeletons against the skyline, their stilts driven deep into the marsh. Elijah met with her again, this time at her on-site trailer, maps spread before them. "See here." He pointed to elevation lines, water tables high. "One heavy rain, and it'll undermine everything." Victoria leaned back, sipping coffee. "We've modeled for that. Insurance covers risks. Trust the experts, Mr. Thompson." He left frustrated, knowing experts often served wallets, not wisdom. The community began to fracture. At the Willow Creek Diner, debates raged over pie and coffee. "Victoria's bringing life back," argued Sally Rhodes, the postmistress. "We need this." Old-timers like Elijah's neighbor, Clara Voss, countered life or destruction. "Elijah knows that lake better than any suit from the city." Elijah himself avoided the fray, focusing on his workshops. One afternoon, teaching a group of kids about wetland ecosystems, a boy named Jamal asked, "Mr. Thompson, why fight the cabins? They sound fun." Elijah knelt, eye level. "Fun's fleeting if it harms home. Josiah fought for this land so we could thrive with it, not against it. Stand for what's right, even if you're alone." As autumn leaves fell, the cabins multiplied, their frames casting long shadows over the water. Elijah sat on his porch at dusk, listening to the lake's whispers grow, fainter under the din of construction. He thought of Josiah, of the chains broken, the dam built. "Balance," he murmured. "It's all about balance. But as Victoria's dream solidified, Elijah sensed the tipping point approaching. He wasn't one for vengeance, but for justice, for the land, for his ancestors, for the future. Little did Victoria know, the man she dismissed held the key to the dam's gates, and with it, the power to let nature reclaim what greed had stolen. With the first frost of winter nipping at the Ozarks, the construction at Black Man's Lake accelerated. As if Victoria Langford feared the cold might freeze her ambitions, the HOA she represented had rebranded the project Ozark Oasis, plastering billboards along highways with images of laughing families kayaking under sun-dappled trees. Behind the scenes, however, cracks were already forming, not in the cabins, but in the fragile alliance between progress and preservation. Elijah Thompson, ever the guardian, ramped up his efforts to sound the alarm. But the siren song of economic revival drowned out his voice for many in Willow Creek. Victoria's operation was a well-oiled machine. Crews arrived at dawn, their trucks laden with prefabricated panels and heavy machinery. The marshy shore, once a haven for frogs and fireflies, was transformed into a grid of plots. Stilts were hammered into the soft soil, each strike echoing like a challenge to the lake's serenity. Environmental monitors hired by Victoria patrolled sporadically, their reports sanitized to highlight minimal impact. But Elijah knew better. He patrolled the perimeter at night, flashlight in hand, noting how the ground squelched underfoot, how erosion scars appeared along the banks where vegetation had been stripped away. One morning, Elijah confronted a foreman named Raul Gomez, a burly man with a hard hat and a clipboard. "You're driving those pilings too deep," Elijah warned, pointing to a fresh excavation. "Hit the aquifer layer, and you'll flood the whole site." Raul shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "Orders from the top, Sigor. We got specs." Elijah pressed. "Specs don't account for this land's memory. It shifts with seasons." Raul hesitated, glancing around, then lowered his voice. "Look, I got family to feed. Can't rock the boat." It was a refrain Elijah heard often, necessity. Trumping caution, Victoria, sensing resistance, launched a charm offensive. She hosted town barbecues at the construction site, serving ribs and coleslaw while guides toured partial cabins. "See, elevated designs mean no flood risk," she'd proclaim, her voice carrying over the chatter. Locals nibbled, some signing up for jobs as electricians or landscapers. Even Marcus Hale, Elijah's friend, took a gig repairing equipment. "Just temporary," Marcus assured Elijah over fence-line coffee. "But Victoria's paying double what the mill did." Elijah sighed. "Double nothing if it all sinks. Remember Josiah's stories. Land gives, but it demands respect." The divide deepened. At community meetings, voices clashed. Young parents like the McIntyres argued for the project. "Our kids need better schools. Playgrounds, this brings taxes for that." Elders, aligned with Elijah, countered with tales of past disasters, the 1972 flash flood that nearly breached the dam, only averted by quick gate adjustments. Elijah spoke passionately. "This ain't about stopping change. It's about smart change. Those wetlands filter our water, house our wildlife, destroy 'em, and we poison our own well." Victoria, always present, rebutted with data slides. "Our impact is 0.02% of the watershed. Sustainable luxury, that's our motto." Privately, Victoria grappled with doubts. Soil tests had flagged instability, but reruns with favorable labs cleared the path. Investors from Chicago and Dallas pressured for timelines, their millions tied to quick returns. "Handle the old man," one emailed. Victoria tried diplomacy, visiting Elijah's cabin with a basket of gourmet cheeses and wine. "Mr. Thompson, let's collaborate. We could incorporate your knowledge. Eco tours led by you." Elijah accepted the gift politely, but stood firm. "Appreciate the gesture, but collaboration means listening. Pull back from the marsh, redesign with space." She left frustrated, muttering about stubborn relics. As cabins took shape, roofs shingled, decks cantilevered over, the water omens appeared. A minor sinkhole swallowed a backhoe in January, blamed on anomalous weather. Fish kills dotted the shallows, attributed to natural cycles. Elijah documented it all, sharing photos with Lena via email. "Dad, fight legally," she urged during a call. "Sue if needed," he chuckled. "Courts move slow, nature don't wait." He filed complaints with state environmental agencies, but bureaucracy stalled them. Victoria's lobbyists ensured delays. The community fracture turned personal. At the diner, whispers turned to arguments. Sally Rhodes, once neutral, now championed. "Victoria, Elijah's holding us back. Progress or perish." Clara Voss defended him. "He's saved this town before. Listen, families split." The McIntyres stopped inviting Elijah to barbecues after their son got a construction job. Even church services tensed, sermons on stewardship subtly nodding to the debate. Elijah found solace in his workshops, attendance swelling as kids sensed the drama. "Why's everyone mad, Mr. Thompson?" asked little Aisha one afternoon, as they planted reeds. "'Cause folks forget roots," he replied. "Josiah built this dam after escaping chains. Freedom means protecting what's yours, not selling it." The kids nodded, inspired by his tales of resilience. Jamal, the boy from before, declared, "I'll help you fight." Elijah smiled. "Fight with knowledge, son. That's the real power." By spring 2024, 50 cabins stood complete, their lights twinkling like false stars. Victoria announced pre-sales, brochures boasting untouched paradise. But Elijah noticed the waterline creeping lower, strained by runoff diversions. He adjusted the dam gates meticulously, but tension built. One stormy night, a cabin's deck buckled, slightly dismissed as settling. Elijah warned Victoria in a heated call. "Signs are there." "Heat 'em," she snapped. "Coincidence? Stay off my sight." As conflicts peaked, Elijah pondered deeper action. He wasn't vengeful, but inspirational, modeling steadfastness for the next generation. Josiah didn't back down, he told himself, staring at the dam under moonlight. The lake whispered back, urging balance, with 89 more cabins rising. The stage was set for a reckoning, where one man's resolve would clash with unchecked ambition, teaching Willow Creek the true cost of greed. As summer 2024 baked the Ozarks in unrelenting heat, the Ozark Oasis project neared its zenith, with 120 of the 139 cabins framed and gleaming under the sun. Victoria Langford's vision was materializing, rows of luxury retreats, their cedar siding, scented with promise, decks hovering like invitations over the now-to-bid waters of Black Man's Lake. But beneath the veneer of success, the land groaned in protest, and the community of Willow Creek teetered on the brink of irreversible division. Elijah Thompson, the unyielding steward, watched the transformation with a heavy heart, his warnings evolving into a crusade that inspired some and alienated others. The site's bustle was ceaseless, cranes lifting beams, workers shouting over, drills, trucks churning mud into ruts. Victoria oversaw from a command trailer, her days a blur of calls to investors and photo ops for social media. "We're 85% done," she'd boast in updates, ignoring the growing list of issues. Cracked foundations on 3 cabins, unexplained seepage in basements, wildlife fleeing en masse. Her team patched problems hastily, prioritizing speed over sustainability. "Deadlines are dollars," she reminded staff. Elijah's patrols intensified. Armed with a notebook and camera, he cataloged violations: illegal dumping of fill dirt into wetlands, disruption of migratory bird paths. He presented evidence at a packed town council meeting, his voice steady amid jeers and applause. "Look at these photos, erosion eating the shore. The marsh is collapsing under weight it wasn't meant to bear." Supporters clapped, detractors, many employed by the project, booed. Victoria countered smoothly, "Minor adjustments. Our eco-engineers assure stability." The council, swayed by promised revenues, voted to continue. The rift tore through Willow Creek like a fault line. Neighbors who'd shared fences for decades avoided eye contact. At the annual county fair, booths divided, one for project supporters, with free swag, another where Elijah's allies distributed flyers on environmental risks. Marcus Hale, torn, confided in Elijah, "Lost a friend today over this. Said I'm betraying the town by working there." Elijah clasped his shoulder. "Ain't betrayal to feed your family, but question if the meal's poisoned." Inspirational moments emerged amid the chaos. Elijah's workshops became rallies, drawing families from beyond Willow Creek. He shared Josiah's story vividly. He crossed rivers in the dark, built this dam with hope as mortar. We honor that by standing tall. Kids like Jamal organized a Save the Lake Club, picking litter and planting trees. Lena visited more, helping digitize Elijah's records for online petitions. "You're inspiring a movement, Dad," she said. He humbly replied, "Just doing what's right." Victoria felt the pressure. Anonymous tips to regulators prompted inspections, finding her for minor infractions. She retaliated subtly, spreading rumors that Elijah was anti-jobs, anti-growth. In a diner confrontation, she approached his table. "Your crusade is costing livelihoods." Elijah met her gaze. "Your greed's costing legacy. Pull back now, save face." She stormed out, but doubt not another sinkhole had appeared overnight. As cabins filled with fixtures, granite counters, Smart Tech the land rebelled openly. Heavy rains in July caused flooding, submerging decks and warping floors. Victoria blamed freak weather, but Elijah knew diverted runoff overloaded the system. He adjusted the dam to prevent breach, but warned publicly, "Nature's speaking, listen." Media picked up the story. A local news crew interviewed him. "This lake's my bloodline," he said on camera. "Won't let it be commodified." Views surged, drawing supporters statewide. Community bonds strained further. Church groups split. The McIntyres hosted pro-project potlucks, while Clara Voss organized prayer vigils for the land. Fights erupted at the bar over jobs versus justice. Elijah mediated where he could, emphasizing unity. "We all drink from this lake. Fight greed, not each other." His words motivated many. A petition gathered 500 signatures, pressuring the state. By August, with 139 cabins nearly ready, omens escalated. Cracks spiderwebbed walls. Pilings shifted audibly. Victoria rushed grand openings, inviting VIPs, but Elijah, sensing the endgame, prepared. He confided in Lena, "If they won't stop, nature will." She worried. "Be careful, Dad." He nodded. Josiah taught survival. "This is mine." The fracture peaked. At a heated town hall, shouts drowned speeches. Victoria promised bonuses. Elijah invoked heritage. As chaos reigned, Elijah slipped away, his mindset. The shores were fractured, but his resolve was steel-ready to unleash the waters that would heal what ambition had broken, inspiring a lesson in humility and harmony. September 2020 for dawn crisp over Black Man's Lake, the 139 cabins of Ozark. Oasis standing proud, their fresh paint glistening like a mirage of prosperity. Victoria Langford hosted a ribbon cutting, champagne flowing as investors toasted. "A new era for Willow Creek," she declared. But Elijah Thompson, absent from the fanfare, stood at the dam, his hand on the gate lever. For months, he'd warned, now action beckoned. Not destruction, but restoration, a motivational act of defiance against greed. Honoring Josiah's legacy. The decision crystallized the night before. Elijah sat on his porch. The lake's whispers urgent amid construction lights. Reports confirmed. Soil liquefaction under cabins, imminent collapse. Victoria ignored final pleas. "Time to let nature teach," he murmured. At dawn, he opened the gates, not fully, but enough. Water rushed out, levels dropping steadily. By noon, alarms blared at the site, decks tilting, foundations cracking as mud engulfed stilts. Cabins leaned, then sank, millions vanishing into the marsh. Panic ensued. Workers evacuated. Victoria arrived horrified. "Sabotage," she cried. But Elijah met authorities calmly. "Ain't sabotage, maintenance." Dam needed release to prevent breach. Investigations followed, but his logs proved warnings ignored, permits flawed, charges dropped. Public opinion shifted, viewing him as a hero defending heritage. The reclamation was swift. As waters receded to natural levels, wetlands revived, reeds sprouted, birds returned, fish thrived. The sunk cabins became cautionary ruins, a testament to overreach. Willow Creek reeled, initially jobs lost, but inspiration bloomed. Elijah's act galvanized ecotourism, guided hikes on Josiah's legacy trail, workshops drawing crowds, Lena quit her job to co-manage, turning the cabin into a center. Victoria's empire crumbled. Lawsuits bankrupted her HOA. She reflected in interviews, underestimated the land and the man guarding it. Willow Creek healed divides. Former foes united in sustainable ventures, organic farms, artisan shops. Elijah became a symbol. Speaking at conferences, stand for roots, nature, rewards balance. Years later, on August 28, 2025, Elijah watched grandkids fish, the lake pristine. Josiah's spirit lives, he told them. The story inspired generations, one man's courage reclaiming what greed stole, proving resilience triumphs.